Tech Talk Tuesday, y'all, number 145. Let's go ahead and get started. This will be the first time in the Man Cave 2.0. Think we can find a way to share some cool stuff with you guys. I see you getting a few folks on there. So what I have in 2.0 is 40 years of stuff we collected, and at 10,000 square feet in the other shop at Star Racing for 40 some odd years, we were able to have lots of stuff. So we sold some, we kept some. One thing that's really neat that I still have is the body off of the bike that John Myers rode and I rode. We both won with this body back when we first started, and I haven't cleaned it up yet because it's been a while, but I wanted to share that with you. And then we've got some checks. I know I've shown you the checks before, but these are big checks, and they've all been cashed, and the money was spent a long time ago. We had some really nice ones, like this one was really good, but it's long gone. And then this is our new bench racing room. This is going to be a place where we can hang out and talk a little bit. And I'm going to share some stuff with you. Here's a really cool one from back in the day. How about that one? Isn't that cool? And here's one when we won the European Championship back along the way. And let's just see. I want to show you some history. Some cool stuff. Okay, I got my El Camino up on here, and I got some Wallies on the wall and on the windows. But check this out, y'all, from way back when. I know it's upside down, but check out the Star Racing Cycling Machine. That sign's really old. I'm going to put it up in here, too. And let's see what else I have here to share with you. We're going to do Tech Talk in a minute, but I just thought, since this is my first time in here with you, I'll show you. This is a Pro Stock, S&S Pro Stock head with the giant valves. Here's the cast S&S Pro Stock head. Here's one of the rapid prototype manifolds for the Street Pro, but with the oval ports like Radar did. And let's see, some other cool stuff. In here is the project room. I know you've heard me speak about the project room before, but this is a bone stock 114 Street Glide that I ride. It has nothing done, doesn't even have mufflers on it yet. And it's been fun because I've always had souped up bikes my whole life, so it's fun to have one that's not souped up yet. I hope y'all can hear me okay. Here's the CBX. I wanted you to see how wide this engine is. 6 cylinders. Very thankful that I have that bike. It's 44 years old. Here's some great history from in my office in Americas. Fred Collis, champion on Pro Stock. And then here's me on my funny bike, and me on Bagzilla. Anyway, Jackie's been sort of fixing this room up a little bit, but this is really neat, y'all. This is a Snap-on toolbox that we got done, and I want you to see how big it is. It's got the Star Racing logos on it. That was really cool to have back in the day. And then here's the 6 cylinders of the CBX, you can see. And before everybody makes fun of me and my pipes, I just want to tell you, these bikes have so much carburetor trouble that the guy that owned it probably let it run all the time at idle or revving it up, sitting stationary so it didn't have any wind blowing on it. And that burned the pipes up, but I'm going to fix it. Here's the new giant. This is Blue 50. It's an ex-police bike that we are making into my new hot rod for me to ride. I'm going to change it over. I'm going to get rid of the ABS program. Got a new big back wheel and stuff coming for it. I got a really nice swing arm that Track Dynamics did for me. Got some wheels coming for it. Mike at A1's helping me with a conversion kit for that. Putting a chain and sprockets on it. Anyway, this is, it's cool. It's a real police bike. I stripped all of the strobe lights and sirens and the radio and all that stuff off of it. And I want you to see how big the pipe's going to be for it, man. Look at this thing. Look how big that tailpipe's going to be. And I use an old swing arm. It's a good little fixture jig for me to hold the cases while I put the crank in and out, because it sticks through the other side. And I know there's something cool Harley sells or Jim sells for us to take the cranks out, but I was able to find an old swing arm that worked good. And then here's a GRC crankshaft he built for me 2 or 3 years ago. It's a 4.375 out of a 107. Stanley prepped the rods, honed them to clearance, and set me up with the big end rod clearance that I want. And I have just a stock Milwaukee 8 head on display so I can show you all how tiny the exhaust port is. And then I want to show you the new pipe for the 5.0. I'm a big exhaust flow guy. I hate stopping up the exhaust pipe. It's like having a stopped up sewer. So I'm going to have a really big pipe. And you see I'm not playing. Burns made that for me. I want to share that with you for a minute. And the guys at Moonshine, these are not the first billet cylinders in the world. They didn't invent these cylinders, but they live right here, and they fixed me up a set 4600 big bore. You might be able to see how big this is. There's a regular Sharpie. That's how big the bore is. It's really big. And in order for it to fit the cases, I had to do a little, it's not the 4.5 that they normally sell everybody. This is a 4600, so I had to do some little modification here and a little modification here to make them all fit in the cases. And I showed you some videos of that. And my Milwaukee 8 tips that I want to tell you guys is, Broski reminded me how cool this is when you're gonna take your balancers out, folks. These are the balancer bearings right here that's in the Milwaukee 8. I've already got the bolt out, and I'm getting ready to take these out, because in my career racing and building Milwaukee 8 since 2017, that's been 5 years now. We've built lots and lots of them. We've had lots of stuff go wrong, and we've had some really great success. But when you leave these in here, eventually they will find a way out, especially when you start revving it up high enough for the frequency in the cases to get hot, and the frequency of the vibration of the engine will get high enough one time that these clearances and this stuff will align, and these bearings will start coming out. And you want to see what a hand grenade looks like going off in your engine, is when these roller bearings start coming out when you're turning this thing wide open. You can also see how close we came to going into the dial pin here. And when you bore one like this, you have to go down and blend this in. And also the piston slightly comes out the bottom of the cylinder on the stroke. And when the piston comes out, you got to relieve right here for the piston to be able to come out of the sleeve and get down a little further. So you got to make all that fit real nice. And I saw where some people were talking about how thin the cases were. They're like cardboard paper cases. I just want you to see that the factory cast all this hollow. So it's not bored out so big that it went through the relieving they did here. This is still here. So whatever's thin here is thin. It's still thick as it was stock, because when they cast these cases, I think they're centrifugally cast. They're really high quality castings, and they're super thin. If you can see all the webbing and where they go in and undercut and overcut, and they got everything stepped out where it was a real high quality casting that was made to get these to go together and to fit. And you can also see that we almost ran out of room for the piston here to come out of the bottom, and for the piston to come out of the bottom here. So I just wanted to share that with you. And then I made some notes on my table here that I'm going to talk to you real quick about. That was the first little share around Man Cave 2.0. I think, hey, somebody point me out. Tech Talk Tuesday, number 145. It's either 145 or 146. I forget. Can you help me, guys? I think you're only like 20 seconds behind. Somebody say. Okay, Steve, Bruno, Dalton. Hey, Dalton. Hey, Brian. Mike, good afternoon. Thank you, sir. Let's see. Anybody know? 6. Ooh, you think it's 146? Okay, it might be. Well, if it is, I'll change the name. But I wanted to tell you guys a couple people I know, probably 10 people mentioned in the last week or two about me building their engines because I'm posting engine stuff. And no, I'm not going to build the engines because I'm retired. So one guy said this morning, he said, "Oh, you're retired?" And I said, "Yeah, it is 145, huh, Jackie? Thank you. Good job. I appreciate you guys reaching out." Retirement. I'm retired from building motorcycles and engines, okay? But this is mine. This is my motorcycle. I built everybody's, hey, Brody, everybody's, Larry, I built all these guys' engines for 250, 400, 500 engines over my career, and I enjoyed it. It was wonderful, but when a man says he's retired, that doesn't mean now he can build your engine. Some people, 90-something% of the people in the world, they had another, that work on motorcycles, maybe they have another job they call their job, and then when they retire, they can work on more motorcycles. Well, that's not me. I can work on more motorcycles now that I own because I'm retired. And I put myself off for a while. Hey, Nick. Hey, Greg. Hey, Donald. I put myself off for a while, and I wanted to work on my stuff now since I'm on my dyno curve of my career has gone and gone up, 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 and now it's nosed over a little bit. So now this retirement is allowing me to work on these ideas. Let me get a chair. And I want to share some ideas with you. Okay, Shop 2.0. I just wanted to tell you this is the Man Cave 2.0 that I've been talking about on Tech Talk, and you get to see it finally. I wanted to also talk about the balance factors, the power books, flow bench, oil pumps, and pro stock motorcycle news. Okay, a couple things. One, let me lower this again. It's going to make some noise. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you all that the balance and the power books, Smokey Unit's book, Power Secrets, Bill Jenkins' book, God bless those guys. They were the smartest guys, and they did a great job putting those books together 50, 60, 70 years ago. But all those rules and all those great ideas that are full in the books came from experience with, as my buddy said today, he called them taxi cab engines. They run up and down the highway at 1,000 to 1,500 RPM. And even 70 years ago, the Daytona 500 was one with one of those engines with all cast parts, cast heads, cast blocks. And those engines didn't have any RPM, so a lot of rules were made. Nowadays, if you got a nice balancing machine and you balance your assemblies and you do 50% or 52 or 48 or some of these V-twin guys now, they're talking 60% balance, 55% balance. And all that on the balancing machine, I think it's around 500 RPM. And that's not really relevant in my mind to what's happening when the engine's running, but we do have to have the parts balanced. We have to have the pistons weigh the same. We have to have the front and rear or all 8 cylinders to be able to stay balanced. But as far as where the counterweights go and the balance factors and things like that, that has changed so much in the last 50 years. And the folks that are doing this for us are still using the tried and true rules. Not everybody. And I see some guys on here that know what I'm talking about, and there's some guys on here that just go, but they call the crank guy, and the crank guy says, yeah, you need to have it balanced, and you need to have it at this percentage factor. I need your piston weights and all that kind of stuff to get it balanced at some RPM and at some level of experience. But think about it. If you got the same guy building a crankshaft for someone that's balanced at a 50% factor, and he's got another guy that wants it to be at a 48% balance factor, and he's got another guy who wants it at 60% balance factor, I'd like for you guys, hey y'all, Wendy, Neil, all y'all, Chad, I want you guys to look it up when you get finished with my tech talk today. Look up balance factor Stuart Warner balance, whatever. Look up balance factor and read about what it is. It's if you weigh the pistons and you weigh the small end of the rods and you have a reciprocating weight that goes around the crankshaft. Then you have a rotating goes around with the crank. Reciprocating goes up and down the cylinders. So there's different percentages of the parts. What we found is they all need to weigh the same, but sometimes the balance factor needs to be changed. So at some speed, it runs better. And also, I want you to know those are all static. I had a really smart guy tell me that even where the counterweights are is dead nuts, 180 from TDC. It's if the piston's at the top, the counterweights are at the bottom. But when it's running, it's all about cylinder pressure. It's not about how much parts weigh. If parts weigh 300 pounds or 400 pounds, and the rods and the mains and the pins and rings, all that stuff weighs 300 pounds, and it's spinning 500 RPM on the balancer. In reality, when you're going 8,000, 9,000, 6,000, 7,000, all that stuff is advanced. It's actually backed up, and the cylinder pressure happens after, peak cylinder pressure happens after TDC, so your big counterweights need to be in a different clocking on the crankshaft. And I'm not giving away the farm here, I'm just telling you, be wary of that stuff and learn about it. The power books, like I said, I read all of them 20 times. I read Smokey's book probably 50 times. I read Smokey Unick's book. I read all the Chevy Power Secrets books. They were a compilation of wonderful nuggets that were 50 years old, and very little of it's brand new. Another person mentioned the other day to make sure you get the Rear and Morrison engine building book. That's got way more modern stuff, but it's still set, excuse me for rocking the boat here, it's still set in a time while our acceleration of learning, our rate of learning has been going like this. This is probably in 50 years, and this is how much we learned. We didn't know much. Now we know this much, and one day we'll know this much. I doubt it. We'll probably know 80%, maybe, if we're like the smartest guys in the world. But this is how our rate has been. 50 years ago, we didn't know anything about it. Here we are 50 years now. We might know 70% if you're the smartest guy in the industry, but this does not stop y'all. So the books that are printed and written, their rules change. Now, somebody was telling me, said, no, George, it's math. The math stays the same. Yes, it does. Math stays the same. The formulas stay the same. No, 1 + 1 will always equal 2, and 3 + 3 will always equal 6. But I'm telling you, we might change the 3, and we might change the 3, and we might change the 1 and the 1 to different numbers, because our learning and our discoveries are going up at a huge, fast rate. So please don't get married to old ideas, and be open-minded for new ideas. The flow bench, I'm going to skip over it real quick because that looks like the horse we've beat it to death. Flow bench is a great tool. We need it as a gauge or a meter to check stuff. But when you flow bench test at 28 inches of depression and you go to full lift or part lift or whatever you're doing, and the flow bench says it flows 400 CFM, 500 CFM, 600 CFM, whatever it says it flows, that's one snapshot in time of a whole bunch of revolutions. And it's a lot of lift. It's 300 degrees of duration from the time the valve opens till the time the valve closes if you're talking less than 50 thou lift. So it's a lot of stuff happening there. And when it gets to maximum at 28 inches, think about it. If it's flowing 28 inches of depression at 100 lift, and it's also flowing 28 inches of depression at full lift, one of them is wrong, in my opinion. And that's something we can talk about another time, and I'll continue to grow with that. Oil pumps. With the dry sump stuff, Chevrolet, Ford, Chrysler, with the Harleys, they're dry sump. We have a separate tank. We have a separate pump. And when we buy oil pumps, and you buy red ones and blue ones and all the really cool internet cool parts that sell more pressure, more pressure, more pressure, we don't need more pressure. We have plenty of pressure. We need better return. I've told you this probably 10 times now, but I want to tell you, out of all of the hundreds of engines we built in the Harleys right now, hey Charlie, hey Bob, what we have found is the 2020, 2021, 2022 factory oil pump has the best ratio between pressure and return. It has the best ratio. The ones that are internet colored for marketing. There's blue ones, red ones, green ones, silver ones. They're billet, all different kind of cool stuff. They have more pressure than they have return. They have more pressure than they have scavenge. And that's one thing that at the racing that the guys are doing with the bagger, King of the Baggers classes. Some of those guys, even the factory guys, are learning how far behind their ideas were on this stuff because they don't return the oil quick enough. They just supply a lot, and they need to return it. Back when we raced NHRA Pro Stock with the dry sumps, we were so focused on the return, and if we didn't burn the bearings up, we usually had enough supply and enough pressure. And when you have a roller bearing engine like this guy, everything's in it. It's roller. There's no pressure required, but this engine fills up. It just pressure, and we need a good scavenge system to get the oil out of the sump and put it back in the tank before the tank runs dry. I mean, these guys right here, the stock oil pump will give you 50 psi at RPM, 60 psi at RPM to supply the rod bearings, but these are roller bearings. They look like this. They're roller bearings. They look like this. They roll in here. There's not, and you can't even take it apart and measure the clearance. You got to trust the guy that's building your crank to have it, everything balanced up nice so it's nice and smooth. And also he's got to have, yeah, thank you, Steve, over 400 degrees of oil temp. OMG. They don't make a lot of oil that does good at that. You got to find something special that'll handle that kind of temperature. But they also need to return it. It needs to go through the sump, back in the tank, back in the pump, and return it back. So I like a bigger scavenge or return stage in the oil pump than I do pressure. Also, on this bike, when we do 5.0, my blue 5.0 is going to be 145 cubic inches. It's going to turn 8,500 RPM, and I hope it makes 200 horsepower. It's not a touring bike. I'm not planning on riding this to work. I'm planning on going where I need to go and find a piece of pavement nice enough for me to floor it. Most time it'll be at the drag strip, but it's not going to be for touring. I got a nice touring bike, and if I want to sport around, I got 6 cylinders of it to deal with. So if you want a 200 horsepower Harley for you to ride around and for you to, people write me and tell me all the time, they say, what kind of gas? Can I go cross country? Can I drive it to Sturgis? Can I drive it to Daytona? Can I go to bike night, bike week, and ride on the freeway? I got to run 90 miles an hour all day with my buddies. No. This bike, yes. This bike has a 2020 stock oil pump, and it has a stock air cleaner on it, and I did modify the breathers so the oil is not going back into the engine. That's an EPA thing, y'all. Harley did not make a mistake on that. The EPA said if you're going to sell these motorcycles to people in this world, in this country, you got to burn the breather oil. It comes through this engine. It's got to go back through, and it messes up your engine when that breather oil goes back. The mist goes back through there. So back to the big cylinders. I know I'm jumping around, but follow. The oil control is going to be very, very important here. It's going to make a lot of power, a lot of pressure. I don't care about how long I can ride it. I'm not intending on riding it a long way. I'm intending on riding it really fast. I want it to make power. And I've been racing motorcycles for my whole life, since I was little. And I'm going to race motorcycles till they tell me I'm too old and they take my license away from me. And then I'm probably going to sneak out and race motorcycles anyway. But I wanted y'all to know that if a man doesn't scare himself every now and then, I don't know how you live. So I scare myself often. I scare myself in my car, my truck, my motorcycle, because the adrenaline is a gift from God that is so much enjoyed. Endorphin and adrenaline are 2 great gifts from the good Lord, and I enjoy both of them. So when I walk in my shop, little 2.0 here, and I see this stuff, and I see everything in the big room, and I see everything in this little room, I get a little endorphin. But when I floor the throttle on this, I'm going to get a bunch of adrenaline. And if it doesn't scare me, it's too slow. Pro stock news, real quick. NHRA put another 10 pounds on the Suzukis. So Karen went fast at Pomona at the World Finals. They put 10 pounds on every Suzuki. Then for the Gator Nationals this year, it's only been 3 races this year, they had to weigh 10 pounds closer to the V-twins, which was, I think, 620 and 640. Then the next race, Houston, they took 20 pounds off the V-twins. It made them only 10 pounds apart between the Suzuki and the V-twins. Now, after Steve Johnson set the track record with the Monster Head at Houston and at Charlotte 4-wide, they put another 10 pounds on. So now, for the first time in history, first time I remember, and I've been around a lot of history, they now weigh 630. If you have a V-twin or a 4, they both weigh 630 now, which is crazy weight. Crazy weight. And I know it wasn't any fun when the V-twin guys were weighing 640, but 630. Yes, we can put the weight where we want it. Yes, we can move some things around. And I'm saying we loosely because I am retired. Am I interested in all this stuff? Yes. Do I love all this stuff? Yes, I am. I am a gearhead, and I will be, like I said, till they lay me to rest. And anyway, thank y'all so much again for watching Tech Talk Tuesday, 145. This motorcycle doesn't scare me. This black one doesn't scare me unless I go in the corner too fast. And it's big and heavy and it doesn't handle that great. That's the only way that one scares me. This one doesn't really scare me, but it sounds awesome. But when it gets up on the pipe and it starts screaming, it kind of gets the adrenaline going. And this thing right here, when we get this done with the big plus 4mm titanium valves, and we get this engine running with our blue 5.0 with an extended swing arm, and I'm hoping 190, 200 horsepower with these really big pipes and stuff, I'm hoping this one literally scares me enough to have to bring spare shorts, spare underwear, whatever you want to call it, in my saddlebags when I go ride it. That's all I got for tonight. God bless y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Last thing I want to show you is Julie gave me some Superman socks. You know I'm a socky person. I had to share my socks. Oops. All right. Y'all have a great night. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to put this down and I'm going to tell y'all, may God bless y'all. And please come back and see me again when we talk about even more cool stuff and I get to share these engines. And this job I'm doing with the Blue 5.0, I'd like to share it with you as it goes. Thank you and God bless. Have a great night.